All right, here we are. Let's says we're live. Hey, everybody out there, what's going on? Hey, Wes, good to see you. Tibor, well, I see Wes is actually being good out there. Good boy. Anyway, tonight we're talking about the kind of machines that you would need inside if you were like in an shtf situation. And I was been thinking about this all week, so I think I'll kind of kick it off. Is I'm trying to think outside the box, and instead of thinking about what I would need inside my house, is I would think that I would want to make sure that I had a shop set up outside my residence, and that the shop would be a very good thing to have because that way you could have machinery in there, even if you didn't have it during an SHTF situation. You could go out and scavenge it and bring it back to your shop. Things like welders or batteries that could be made into welders, like our mad scientist Reed does, or anything like that, like lathes or machinery. So I would think that if you had a shop or some sort of structure outside your home, you could actually turn that into a machine shop and be able to actually start all over again and make a new living out of your shop. Because there'd be other people in your area probably that would need stuff done that they didn't have the materials to do or whatever. They could, hey, I got this chunk of steel. I see you have a shop. Can we get some sort of skill trade to make this? Just say a boat. Can you make a boat for me? You know, and then you'd have a way to trade your skills in order to get what you need, and on the other hand, what he needs too.
Hey, D-Mac's in the house.
Oh, he finally made it. You want me to grab you a link there, buddy, or did you get it in your email?
I think he's trying to get things unloaded or something, and he's going to jump on when he gets settled down.
I just sent him a link out there. That way, when he gets all fixed up, he can jump on.
All right.
So that was my thing, is if you had a big enough area, you could have a shop type setup. It wouldn't have to even be very big, as long as you had some way of putting a few extra machines in there, like welders, or maybe you could even make your own lathes and stuff out of spare parts here and there, and set up a lathe or machine shop so that you could work on things for other people and trade it. Be like a trade system. I'll do this for you if I can get some of this from you, type of thing. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that'd be one way of doing it for that type of stuff. Yeah.
For stuff for SHTF, a lot of the standard domestic equipment I think is real important, like a sewing machine. Actually, a washer, a clothes washer is real handy if you can keep the power going, because things that save you a lot of manual labor are a huge help, because we're going to be so busy doing other manual labor tasks like getting stuff into the farms, growing things, working on crops. I see a lot of that stuff real handy. I'm real partial, obviously, to construction things, anything you'd need for building things, because that's kind of what you're going to need to do and stuff. Some of the key things I don't have the money to buy a lathe or some of the other machine stuff I want to buy yet, but I went and bought precision measuring tools like micrometers, a machinist level and stuff like that. Because if you had some of the good measuring tools and all that, you could actually build one later with a good pile of effort and stuff. But that's just my quick thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If you had the space, you could always make what you need. You'd have to, like you said, you would have to have micrometers and stuff like that to make it work out. But if you had the space, you could actually start going out, like we talked about in the last couple of weeks, going out and scavenge or salvage parts and bring them back and make whatever you need. You could even make yourself some marsh machines or something like that if you had the space to do it. And then you could turn around and sell those things to other people or trade them for skills that they have.
Yeah, for me, my one of my biggest ones I've been trying to do in the last year or so is I've been trying to get backups to my main components. So like I have things right now that I use with electricity or that use a lot of moving parts. Well, I like to try to, gather a whole bunch of things that I would be able to use if those break or I can't use them or I have someone helping me and I have like a second pair so they can do it. Because I mean, it's cool to have one of everything, but I mean, if you're got like 5 people helping you and you only have one for each person, it's like, it'd be nice if everybody had a tool. So trying to get multiples and backups and all that stuff is one thing that really trying to hit with, like getting that brace, like hand saws, basic things. Those are just tools for the outside, but I also like doing things for like the inside with the kitchen because obviously I like to cook. So if I can find things that are going to make my life a little easier in the kitchen as well, then I'm good. So I know Reed knows about it, but I got that pasta machine that I've been absolutely loving for the last couple weeks, and I'll be doing a video on that one here soon. But something as simple as that just makes my life so much easier because I don't have to worry about having a rolling pin and cutting pieces one by one. So if you can think of stuff like that, like a mixer, like those old school crank mixers, that way you're not sitting there having to do with a whisker the entire time. By all means, kind of stuff you need.
Well,
Tibor is saying that you can make a foot treadle lathe fairly easily.
right. Yeah, it's the old type manual powered lathe. Now,
like a sewing machine and just make it turn,
Yeah, I took this that we're going more indoor the house. And
yeah, that's
so my whole list is indoor the house, domestic stuff. And I got 3 pages. So I'll go last.
Well, that's how I am too, Gil. I got all my stuff is for indoor stuff versus garage.
That's kind of why I figured you guys would all have all that indoor stuff. So I thought if we had a shop set up, we could make the stuff for everything that you guys probably have on your list.
Well, it's having a shop to build all that stuff is going to be like a massive shop. I mean,
60 by 60 at least.
Yeah,
have all the tools and stuff.
I mean, if you look at how much industry is required to even build a paper clip these days, I mean, to do that, I mean, there's a lot of industry involved in that.
Well, there probably is, but at the same time, you're going to also have to be thinking smaller. How can I make this with what I have?
Yeah. Uncle Al has popped off with something I have in one of my things farther on down here, but he's mentioned, he says steam power.
Mm-hmm.
Steam power, going old school with a boiler.
Mm-hmm.
Steam power.
Now, just remember those pressure vessels.
We got an echo.
Yeah, those pressure vessels, we got to be careful with. Get those wrong, they're a bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Relief valve is key.
Yeah, before I moved up here to Idaho, I was volunteering at the Niles Canyon Railroad. And every 3 years, we got to break down the steam engines and clean them and inspect them from the inside.
If you had one of those in your house, you'd have to be darn careful, wouldn't you?
Oh, it wouldn't be in the house. It'd be out back with lines, maybe with a generator powering a steam-powered generator run the electrical into the house.
But, you ever seen pictures of old school like pressure canners and pressure cookers and watch them blow up? Then you can only imagine how bad a actual steam power boiler can be.
Oh,
because it's like
the history reports when the old news articles and stuff in the 1800s when they talk about it. I mean, they tore the engine apart. The engineers were killed. I mean, it was a huge, big explosion.
Right.
Like the old locomotive.
A forge is going to be important. But as good as the shop is and all those tools are, in the meantime, you're going to need to eat. And you need to cook. And you need to do your food and stuff. The first two items that I have on my list, first one is ranges, either a propane range, electric, or a wood burning range. You got the old wood burning stoves where you got the for the oven, the cooktop, and then you have the water boiler on it as well. So what's it? Homesteading Family, I think it is, up in northern Idaho. They got a really nice stove in their winter kitchen. That's how
out of steel and fire, right?
Yeah, it's, you just stoke up the wood in it, and basically they also use it to help heat their house in the wintertime.
You just got to watch out when you mount those things, because you got to put them central, but you don't want to put them next to anything in your kitchen with like cabinets or whatever to melt shit. So stuff.
Yeah. Well, usually
like 12 inches away from anything that's flammable.
Usually what they do is the kitchen would be built on the back side of the fireplace for the living room. And so they just plumb it right into there. That way you have the cement or the brickwork or stonework from the fireplace. The back of it is behind the stove in the kitchen. That's the way my mother-in-law's house is. And it was built in 1879 or whatever down in Fremont. And that's the way they did it. They built the house with the fireplace, and then they built the kitchen on the back side of it.
Well, that's way back when the kitchens were separate from the house.
Yeah. And
in case the kitchen called.
Now the second item I have on my list is a refrigerator, freezer, chest freezer. And basically I have it as you got to choose whether you're going to have AC, DC, which is Reed's thing, or you're going to run have it run on gas like the camper in the RVs. You have the refrigerators in there that run on the propane. The propane, I guess it goes in and just chills it somehow, however it works. I've really never looked at it.
It's called an absorption refrigeration process. And in fact, what's interesting about that is you can design those that can run, because it's an ammonia system. You can change it so that they have it where you can have a solar collector and do a charge up a whole vessel so you can have it run all night. And it's really neat. So you can actually have the sun do work and extra work in the day and then release it over the night as well to keep things cold.
Yeah. That was one of my ideas there on it. And I continue that for the water heater. You can have it AC, DC, gas, or you can have a solar water heater, or you can go geothermal, or you can have a wood water heater or a waste oil water heater. And those are basically all available to purchase.
They also have one of the other things on that, Gil, you know how they people have boiler systems, like the ones that'll do, they actually have those indirect hot water heaters that run on the boiling system of a house for radiators. And so people can have those driven off of like pellet stoves and a whole bunch of other options.
They also have it's a company called Central Boiler is the biggest one. They have a little garden shed outside that you stock up, and it has the insulated lines coming inside, and you can run you can run your hot water directly off of it. You can actually have a heat exchanger for your house, so you don't have a furnace. You just have a heat exchanger core to heat the house.
Heat exchangers, yeah, those would work good.
Well, getting back into what you were talking about.
You could actually do your flooring like that. You could run steam in your flooring, pipes in your flooring, and then have your boiler outside and just run the steam through the piping to heat your flooring and stuff.
It doesn't even need to be steam. It can just be hot, 180 degree water.
Look at the Romans. Romans had heated floors.
Oh, yeah.
Romans used to have that 40-inch gap where they'd pipe in basic geothermal just to heat up their floor. Well, obviously the higher ends, they didn't have this in peasant houses and stuff.
Right. And they had the bath houses where the huge giant bathrooms. They just bathtubs for the community, and they have the heater underneath of it. The ceramic ductwork.
Well, a lot of them were in Italy, so they had all the volcanic area around there, so they could use those natural heated pools. So,
but some of them, were in Rome itself had the they have like this 12-inch terracotta tile tubes, and they had them lined up, and they had their cemented up, and then they had a fire going on, and that was the chimney for the fire go up and go through it, and would heat the floor of the bathhouse and just warm all that water up.
Okay, history side, folks.
Yep.
Bath, England was a Roman outpost, and what Gil say where he's at.
I'm in the middle.
The plumbing was like that, and also they had heat ducts. Now, the bad thing a lot of people miss in this discussion is when you do manual, when you do steam, and you do animal power, we forgot to touch that, is they need child labor, slavery of draft animals, and slaves, because people miss that. In the 1870s, when we released the slaves, the South suffered a great economic. The North was enjoying because they're producing stuff, because they got the influx of all the people from Europe after war toward Europe in the 1860s and 1850s heading to America. So they have their labor problem solved. And if you've seen those photos of little kids working in coal mines, working in sweatshops, working in factories, they were all run on steam. Or worse, like in Mexico, they were animal driven. So you see this poor donkey being beaten by a little kid who is half starved to run somebody's sewing machine. This is all history.
Yeah. Now that the other thing to look at from you got the house heated, but now in the summertime you want to cool your house. And on my list I had an AC unit that is, you can have them that are either AC powered or DC, which Reed, I believe you said like the compressors and stuff work better on DC than they do on AC.
Well, like from a lot of systems nowadays, they have an inverter system in there where they actually turn it into DC power to run the compressors. DC works the motors really well. Now, there are direct DC AC systems that run on 48 volt. They're ridiculously expensive, and they also have chillers that run on 48 volt. They're also very expensive. So you can bypass the inverters, but you're still going to have electronics in there anyways.
Right.
So I would actually pay the extra money to make certain I had enough battery power and inverter power to run the things. And like my primary plan is I'm going to use heat pumps to heat and cool my house off of my solar electricity. But I'm still working on increasing the insulation on the walls, below, above, because the more I can make the house more efficient, the less I have to spend in costs associated with trying to do that. Because I'm not one of those ridiculously wealthy people that can plunk down, $100,000 on a massive, giant, crazy system.
Okay, Reed, are you good? Reed and Gil, I got a question. Are you going to do a ventilation tunnel?
Oh yeah, I actually want to get something buried pretty deep so that I can also draw like air through the ground and cool it down, and then pull it up and have it come right out of a cupola and stuff.
Yeah, I just came across the thing in Nebraska where they actually get below, like 20, 30 degrees below zero.
No.
This old man down there has Willapina. Basically, it's like a halfway submerged greenhouse. And then he has those underground tubes that are buried 8 feet deep.
Yep.
And they run all over his property. And he has seven channels of them, comes back up, and he keeps that greenhouse in the middle of winter, keeps it at 52 degrees in the middle of winter. And he has oranges in there that are growing all year round. Before he did that, though, he was using that system on his house. So that's that's one of the things we're looking at to do here to cut our heating expense and cooling expense here is do this same type thing because it's down 8 feet down. You're looking at a temperature of 52 to 56 degrees.
Well, I was thinking if you
And
had
so
a
that'll
root cellar,
cool.
you could actually duct it up your root cellar. You could actually duct that air up into your home.
Yeah,
Well,
you can for a while.
Yeah, you don't want to raise the temperature in the root cellar, otherwise things are spoiling.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
you start pumping that cold air out, the hot air is going to go in the root cellar.
And actually, one of the most amazing places is salt mines. They stay at constant temperature and the humidity is controlled because of the salt.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, here where I live, about 60 minutes drive to Fresno, there's the underground gardens built by this old guy, old Italiano, back in the 20s.
Oh, I've seen the videos on that. That's a cool
yeah.
place.
Yeah.
I went through it. He has a car garage, and all it's got is those tunnels to heat and cool the thing. I'm still trying to figure out how he did it. No heavy machinery. He had a shovel and a Gaboni hoe and a wheelbarrow. That's all the 3 tools he had. A shovel, a Gaboni hoe, and a wheelbarrow. And the guy looked horrible than I do.
Yeah.
Okay. SD Mountain Man says in Korea they burnt coal in the floor of and that's what heated the house.
Yep. Hi, Dan.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
How do they do that? How do they burn coal in the floor?
It ain't
kind of
easy.
Dangerously?
Under the rocks or something?
Probably doesn't have a slate floor.
Did you hear that question,
Oh, okay.
Mountain Man? The question, Mountain Man, is how do they heat it in the floor?
It's a rocket stove. They have the coal and goes down a chute. The hot air goes through a channel. The smoke rises up to another thing. So you don't gas the house and you don't see a bunch of dead Koreans going. Basically, it's a rocket stove. How they heat the slate floor and they put rice mats on top of it.
Yeah, he says it's like a tunnel.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd like to see something like that.
Well, those yeah.
Actually,
Yeah,
so
those first 4
something else though I was thinking about is, heating water for bathing is pretty energy intensive, and but bathing is very important to important hygiene. And I kind of think a lot of times when we're looking at a lot of these things, we need to sort of move on beyond the idea of the traditional, everyone has their own, showers and all that stuff at home, and, build like a Japanese public bath or something, or Roman public baths. So you'd have a area to heat everything up and stuff.
Reed, I'm Japanese, and I know what my family has back in the home country. It's called a furo. It's a big tub made out of redwood, and it has a fireplace inside the tub. You never change the water. You light up the stove in the tank. You heat up the water. You wash yourself first with cold water, and then you go into the tub. That's where America got hot tubs. It just drives me nuts.
In the middle of winter, wash yourself with cold water. No, thank you.
Hey, we're short, angry people. You wash at 5 degrees below zero. See how happy you are.
Hey, you
Don't
could
they use
just like
sauna for that?
Russia. We could build a banya where you don't even bother with getting wet. You just get so hot you sweat everything off of you.
Yeah.
Beat yourself with sticks.
Nope. It's a leaf. I forgot
I'll stick with a
what kind
smoke
of-
bath.
It's a type of leaf they beat themselves. I was in one.
Oh, I've been in them plenty of times.
Yeah, it's not.
We go back to the coal. We go back to the coal thing for a minute. The mountain man was telling us that he wished he'd looked it over better, but he said that it seems it's something like a rocket stove, the coal thing for the floors.
Yep.
Yep, that's yeah.
Because smoke goes up one way and heat goes the other way. Number 2, the mix. So the main living room is heated. Unfortunately, the bedrooms are bloody ass. I can't say that word. It's cold. And you're on the floor on a rice mat and maybe a cushion mat, and you got a futon over you. Not very comfortable. My mom says it's great to sleep, but she's 87 years old.
Yeah. Well, those were those things about the big picture domestic items were the ones I had. Then I got into the small stuff that Anthony is probably thinking of. And that's like things that I'd want to have would be like a water bath canner and a pressure canner.
Yep.
Preserving food is going to be extremely vital. And then, of course, dehydrators and stuff like that right on there.
Yeah, I got that. That's number 9.
If you don't have,
don't forget about
you're gonna have to have a root cellar, and then when you want something to eat, you're gonna have to go out to the root cellar and get it and bring it in.
Well, a lot of food
you're gonna want
leave in the ground till you need it too.
You're going to want to be able to process that food as well. So having a grain mill and sausage grinder is also going to be the biggest things you're going to need, because all the nutritions in these like wheat berries is going to get ground out if you store flour. So you have to grind it as you need it.
He's pointing at you, Dan. He's pointing at you, Dan.
I'm sorry, Dan. I was trying to point to.
That's what you're pointing at.
Go
ahead, Dan. Get your 2 cents worth in there.
Oh no, y'all are doing good. I mean, y'all are hitting the things that are on my list. I think having a hand crank wheat grinder is really important. Sausage grinder, something that you can process down, and refine your food that you're growing. That's going to be really important, because using a mortar and a pestle is going to take a lot of time and a lot of energy. Obviously, mortar and pestle can work.
That too.
But one of my ideas that I have randomly, like I plan on doing this is if balloon is up and we're going back in time. But I plan on.
It's not if, it's when. You know that.
Sure. I plan on doing the smokehouse, and inside my smokehouse is where my still will be, and I'll be distilling my water off the fire in the smokehouse right there, just so that I can kind of double use the fire, I guess. Try to use multi-purposes. You're also going to have to think like localization when it comes to the heating and cooling, because most of our houses are grossly large, and 2,500, 3,500, 4,500 square foot homes, and the energy that's needed to maintain temperature in those houses is going to be ridiculous. So you're going to have to focus on heating 1 or 2 rooms in the house, cooling down 1 or 2 rooms in the house. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff outdoors anyways during the summertime and in the fall and in the spring. So I think trying to get the houses cooled down, I don't want to say it's a wasted effort, but the majority of the world lived without AC until like the 1970s, the 1960s.
Right.
So we're going to be able to survive easily enough without the cooling aspect of things. It's the heating that you're going to have to stay focused on. And you're not going to be able to heat your 4,500 square foot house unless you have like a 10-acre forest in the backyard to be able to process all the wood needed to be able to keep that house heated. So that's where you're going to want to maybe sheet off a couple of rooms just so that you can kind of maintain more temperature. You're possible have communal sleeping areas so that you can generate more heat and have the fire in the one room right there. Those are things that I'm trying to think about.
You would probably, like you were saying, with the big houses that we have today, it would be better to decide what part of the house you want to live in. Just close up the rest of it so that you're not having to use all that extra energy that you don't really need.
Well, most houses, their furnaces and all that, like Dan was talking about, they're made to heat everything and stuff. I actually my systems that I cool and heat my house with are actually localized to the room. So we turn everything else off versus where we're at. We don't have central systems anymore. We have localized ones. Saves me a small fortune in propane and in electricity. Let me tell you.
I'll have to try to get some photos or some videos, but the guys the cabin that's right next to mine up on my property up in North Georgia there, his house is geothermally heated and cooled. It's really, really cool design that he did. He dug like a sub basement, and inside of his basement he's got like these huge ass like boulders like half buried in the earth. And those stay like really cool. Like his sub basement's down at like 48, 49 degrees. So he gets like free AC all summer long. Yeah. All he has to do is pump the air up through the house. But I really like the idea of geothermal for that heating and cooling aspect right there. Because, when it's negative 20 degrees outside, your ground temperature is 52, 53 degrees. I'd rather have a house that was in the 50s than in the negative 10s, type of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of look for grain mills. I was thinking on grain mills, we actually have both manual and electric. So as long as we have electricity, we're going to be using the electric grain mills. And if we need to, then we'll go to the hand grain mills. But one neat thing about the hand grain mill is it's got a big V-belt pulley on it. So we can hook that up to one of the exercise bikes and put one of the kids on there.
Exercise bikes or a treadle pedal or something like that. So
yeah, they get one of the kids on the exercise bike pedaling to run the wheat grinder or the.
One thing to be careful with that, Gil, though, is like if you read the manual carefully on those guys, the ones for grinding wheat, they use the stones. If you go too fast, you overheat the stones.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got to keep it
on that.
You got to keep it down to a certain speed. Yep. Thing is also, as far as besides just the ones for the stones for wheat, you also want to have the full Monty on them, where they can do the rolled oats. They can do all the different types of grains and stuff. They take different type of some take a little bit different size, different type steel plate. Yeah, the burrs. Yeah, the different burrs. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, burrs is correct term. Burrs, it's either stone or metal. One's designed for coffee and nuts. The other one's for grain, and there's another one for oatmeal, not oatmeal.
There's another one for rolling the oats. So
right, it's a rolling type of burr. The Italians only make. It's Italians. Do not get the American ones. Do not get the emergence company. Those things are horrible. Hubble's cat tried to do it. Our friend in Canada, meow meow, tried to do it with a cheap grinder, and he had trouble.
Yeah.
Anthony had a question on wherever he's at. I don't know. He had a question about wheat berries.
About what?
About wheat berries?
I'm saying with wheat berries, the one thing that I was going to add on here is if you are in a geographical area like me with my house that's constantly running, it's a good idea to be like did back in the 1850s and whatnot. If you can set up a permanent mill and have everybody come to your area and mill, you can take 10% or 20% as payment. So you're always going to make sure that you have your food at the cost of milling. So just think about if you have that natural resource of having water there, you can build a mill like they did back in the 1850s, and you're always going to be able to grind your wheat berries. And just a simple thing with corn, since I live in the South and we have corn has an oil. When you have your oil, when you grind, you have to make sure you are aware of that because you can't grind wheat and corn. It's the same thing because the oil is going to get the wheat and it's not going to work.
Right.
Now remember, kids, the Romans did that. They set up water wheels and slave wheels to grind. Well, they didn't get corn, but they had wheat and milo and oats.
Well,
So
that
everywhere
brings us
they,
to the fact that you'd have to live by a river or a creek.
not really, the Romans solved that problem. They had animals and they had a lot of slaves. That whip.
Oh, you think
So
we should go back to the slave years then, or what?
if it gets really bad, it might be.
Yeah, it could be.
Gil was talking about child slavery or child labor. Ha ha!
No. When I'm talking about that child labor, I'm talking about family children. All right, they're nice. You treat them right. They're going to grow up. We are going to avoid anything with the COPA law here.
Well, I
I
saw
know
this
you guys.
thing on TV today where they're using. It's in a third world country though. It's where the biggest portion of mica comes out of. All the kids there are from the time that they're old enough to walk are mining for this mica stuff that's used every day by everybody.
Yeah.
It was terrible watching some of these kids. They were just barely walking, but going down in these big burrowed holes in the ground and bringing out mica to be sold, on the world market.
Yeah, but what's sad is sometimes those holes collapse. They're unsupported. I've seen the same documentary. Well, those holes will collapse. It doesn't matter. His younger brother will take over.
Yep, exactly. And the
Something
mother
else.
had some of the kids on their back going down there.
Something else I wanted to touch on that you guys kind of brought up a little bit earlier, but slightly different direction is like the machine shop. We like to have the idea that we're going to be able to fabricate metal and work metal, but I think just as important, if not more important, for like true SHTF scenario is going to be your wood shop and woodworking, being able to use your old hand tools to be able to make wood, wood stuff. So, being able to make pulleys out of wood, wheels out of wood, being able to use a spoke shave and a draw knife and all the old tools that you would use to do woodworking, because you can do a lot of stuff with wood that, obviously metal is stronger and it lasts longer, but you can do the same things with wood. So, and those are easier tools to,
or easier material, right, Dan?
Exactly. Easier material right there to work with, and it's more. Obviously, there's a grip of metal in the world now. There's scrap metal everywhere, so we'll be able to do that. But being able to make your wagon wheels or your whatever it is out of wood is going to be just as important as a machine shop. So
Yeah.
Actually, Dan just hit on something really important we didn't hit on yet. Is being able to work clay, traditional pottery, and everything else. That's something really good.
Yep. Yeah, because you can make your clay ovens outdoors. You can, it's nice to have the idea of having a wood burning range, but it's just as easy to make an earth oven out in the backyard out of like slate and clay right there. Absolutely.
And everyone like we can build sewer systems like the old Romans did out of bricks and stuff, so we can get things done that way and stuff. And ceramic pipe. Terracotta pipes and everything else.
Yeah.
And don't forget,
Tyler is out there for. This is up your line, Reed. He's talking about small scale hydrogravity battery setups.
Oh, they work quite well.
yeah.
And also pump
it's a little more complicated.
And also using pump turbines and elevated water storage to access solar storage.
Well, since just lost her Hirsch, Cheryl. Since Cheryl's not here, I'm going to put in something for her. Sewing machines. Now, not just your regular simple sewing machine, which you want to have, but you want to have like a hobby lock, a serger, which are the ones that do like for Reed, your collar there, Reed, your collar on your shirt there. That has to be done with a hobby lock or a serger. Heavy duty sewing machines for heavy duty cottons like your Levi's and stuff. Because
leather sewing shoes.
Yeah,
I think leather is going to be really important as well. Being able to work leather, being able to tan hides, being able to to use leather because it's going to be obviously much longer lasting, being able to make sinew out of animals and a horsehair, sinew, stuff like that. So
You're gonna have to have shoes on your feet. That's gonna be the important thing right there.
Yeah.
And actually,
bingo.
it's something that's really difficult to find and use, but we use it everywhere, is rubber. America has no natural source of rubber. All
Yep.
the latex trees are down south in the tropical areas.
Brazil.
That is something I've often thought about. We're going to have a lot of, there's a lot of things we take for granted that you use rubber for everything. We're going to have a major problem with it. So we either got to figure out ways of making synthetic rubber with petroleums, or we need to get some darn rubber trees and grow them here.
Ford tried that and it failed. And he tried that in New Mexico. It did not work.
Yeah.
You know, Henry Ford.
Well, just look at World War II.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I was just saying, look at World War II, they had a big ration on rubber, not because of any kind of thing around. It was just that all our rubber came from the East Asia, like hardcore East Asia, where the Japanese had control over, so that we couldn't get any more. Period. So they had to make sure. That's where trade is so important. You're going to need to trade. There's certain things we can't get here.
Right.
If the mountain man says we can reuse old tires for rubber.
Well, the problem on that, though, is the old tires, they're already vulcanized. You break them back down and remelt them. That's a big problem. The process to devulcanize rubber to be able to make it workable again is very complicated.
I guess you could use them to make shoes out of.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could do that. Yeah. We could,
You could use them for simple things, like shoes, or maybe even a way to make gaskets to make things work for a while till you can get something else, But they could be used and repurposed.
Yeah. Now, the next thing I had on my list was for Anthony.
Uh-oh.
Smile, Anthony. This has been on my wish list on Amazon for 5 years. I'm waiting for the price to get to the right thing where my wife will say, yes, you can get it. The KitchenAid 8-quart commercial mixer, 10-speed, gear-driven, the heavy-duty mama that you can put all the attachments on for doing pasta, sausage, everything.
So I actually got one of those for my wedding. It is freaking amazing. I got the KitchenAid 600 professional series. Oh my God. Like the lift bowl and everything. We have like all the different attachments for it. I use the heck out of my KitchenAid, dude. Yeah.
we got the 5-quart, which is what most people get. This is the 8-quart commercial, the big stainless steel mama.
Yeah. I got the 5-quart too. I don't have the big one. I want the big one. Bad.
Yeah. But along with the KitchenAid, with a big, it has the big dough hook on there.
Yep.
So you can make a lot of bread at one time instead of having it beat your arms, working it all the time. You can do the big dough hook on it, and then get down to using your arms to work it out.
So the other random.
So you're going to plan on having solar for your electric to do that, right?
I got 1,200-watt solar panels right now.
That'll do it. Also, you have battery banks too, but you want to check for that one in the trades, industrial trades for restaurant supply, because a lot of businesses are right now, because of the economy, a lot of bakeries are folding and they will sell that. And they'll say
what they have though is the even bigger one. That's
right.
The 20-quart. The 5-gallon bucket one. And I used that's what we had at Scout Camp, and those things are scary to use.
Oh yeah, you lose an arm if you're not careful.
Arm will suck you in all the way in, all of you.
Yep. One of the other kitchen tools that I use all the time that I swear by is my Blendtec, because it's much more because I can mill grain with my Blendtec. I can make flour out of rice, out of wheat, out of all the above. So I make my own flour. I just buy the wheat berries or rice or whatever it is, and we make our own flour out of the blend tech there. So
Here's what Southern Ohio prepping saying: you take all the copper out of the wires, you can smelt it down.
Oh yeah.
Use the copper for different projects.
The,
that's where your blacksmith, your backyard blacksmith forge is going to come into play. Like obviously it's going to be crude, metalworking, but there's so much available metal around where, there's a lot of steel, there's a lot of copper, there's a lot of, all the above that, if you can figure out how to work that with your little forge and your anvil in the backyard, you'll be able to make all the tool heads and stuff that you'll need to be able to stay at pioneer era,
Yeah.
That's what Tibor is saying here in the side chat. He's saying that his view of SHTF is we'll probably go back a couple of 100 years, and that's where we'll probably have to start over from.
Yeah.
So,
well, think about fuel. You have a big problem with getting fuel because even back 100 years, they had a coal trade. So, I mean, coal is awesome for being able to forge. I mean, you can do it with charcoal, but you're not going to get near the heat to really be able to move that hardcore steel. So you need coal. And if you're nowhere near coal deposits, you're kind of screwed when it comes to forging because they're not going to have propane for very long. You're not going to want to waste it on that.
Or you'd be beating like the Japanese little tiny hammers for 4 days on a piece of, whatchamacallit, I forgot the name of the steel. It's not Benson, it's the other word. Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm talking.
Yeah, I know exactly. It's on the tip of my tongue because I've watched several shows on to making the steel.
Yeah, where they get it out of that black sand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they keep beating on it because that's the only way you can forge steel in Japan because they didn't have coal deposits. They had charcoal.
That's right.
So if you want to make that much steel, that's 6 months work. So if you're making a 36-inch sword, guess how many years is that?
52.
No, but it's pretty close. Because you have to bind everything.
Yep.
you might have to take a road trip and go get some coal and bring it back.
Well,
That's
actually,
exactly
that's
what's
my
gonna happen.
area.
A lot of guys back in the early in the 1800s would do that. They would just go get what they needed, even if it took them a week or so to get there. They'd go get it and then come back
Yeah, to get
and use it.
the big wagons and just load it up and bring it back.
Yep.
Well, for me, I have so much sun. A big Fresno lens will melt steel.
Yep.
Yeah. Also copper,
enough, yeah.
too.
You get enough of them all focused at the one point. Now, Anthony, when I was in high school, my mom bought this pot. Let's try to get it here where I show it. Yeah, about that big around and about back up here, about this deep. And what's neat about it was it had this little rack it sat in that had suction cups on it. So it'd sit inside this rack and it had this handle on it. She'd pour all the bread stuff in there, and us kids would have to crank that thing around. We were the manual mixer. But I tell you, that homemade bread, man, we were volunteering to make bread because it was so good.
I've seen that in like Italian pizza places. They'll do like the big like for their garlic bread or whatever. They make a whole big giant thing at the same time, and they use those old school things. It's awesome. We got a place over here that does that.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was that channel, Rock of Ages. You guys watch him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He forged. He fixed an axe head by forging it, and the way he did his forge was he put cherry wood in there, and he made it. Just kept cooking it until it got.
Well, I was actually going to say that it does.
Yeah, just stuck the iron in there. And just kept feeding that fire until that axe head got really hot. Then he pulled it out and started banging on it. But it would take some doing, but you could do it.
I was going to say that it doesn't burn quite as hot as coal, but cherry burns really freaking hot. And that's going to be a good wood.
You only got so much of it. I'm trying to think like in resource wise, you're going to be burning an entire tree just to get one thing forged out.
Yep. That's why
Yeah,
you-
that's what people
Hey,
don't do.
Scott, one time or another,
Sure.
that might be all you got to do, and that's what you do, you know.
Yeah.
that's why Japan
Tough to
plants a
wait
lot.
it out, you know.
And just
That's
think about
what-
the smelting process. How much is we use to smelt iron ore into iron?
Yeah. My dad used to had a supplier that from the all the walnut orchards in California that we get, the walnut trees wood. But what he really loved is when they took a tree out totally, because the bottom 4 feet of a walnut tree is not English walnut, it's black walnut. That when he had the black walnut, he actually melted the grate in the fireplace. It got so hot it just melted and collapsed in. So that is so the black walnut is a really hot burning wood.
I've burned out a couple of bottoms of burn barrels with cherry wood and with some walnut as well.
Yeah.
I remember sitting next to a fire with my shoes just a little bit too close to a cherry wood fire, and I melted the bottom of my shoes off.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with the aluminum, Dutch oven. I have a lot of Dutch ovens. This is what I tell people: if you're going to bake, even cookies in SHTF, you need a Dutch oven. And I roasted mine. This was in the mountains with the family, and we had oak and black walnut. And I forgot, and I cooked the heck out of the bottom of the expensive aluminum Dutch oven. It just completely melted the whole bottom. There went my cake and everything in it down into the fire.
Yeah. You got to be careful of even with the iron Dutch ovens, which happens to be number 28 on my list. But one of the things when we were talking about flours and stuff, pasta makers. I know. I'm sorry. I love spaghetti, and pasta makers. They have both the electric ones that would go on the KitchenAid, but they also have the hand crank ones too.
You can just do, for spaghetti noodles, just learn how to make hand pulled noodles. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm Asian. I know what's going on with hand pull. You're going to have arms like this, and you're going to walk the rest of their life like this.
But that's where you start out with the hand crank ones, and you get it down a little bit, and then you start pulling it to get it thinner.
In Japan and in China, you'll see guys skinny frame, but they have the biggest forearms and upper quads because they make handmade noodles, and it takes them. They start at 4:30 in the morning, and they don't quit until 8 o'clock in the night. So you get a nice package, looks like a linguine kind of noodles for all their noodle dishes. Smaller it gets, the harder it is to make noodles.
Yeah.
Well, and you touched on the Dutch ovens. Dutch ovens are going to be really important because you don't really have to have a whole lot of fire to be able to cook in a Dutch oven. I at least once a month I'll get the Dutch ovens out and I'll stack like 3 or 4 of them on top of each other, and it like each one gets like the the family dinner one. I'll put like there's 16 coals underneath it and then 12 coals on top, and then the next one goes on with the cobbler and you only put like 10 or 12 coals on the top of that one, and then the next one stacks on top of that. You can have like 4 or 5 Dutch ovens stacked on top of each other with just a couple of charcoal briquettes or lumpwood charcoal type of thing going, and you can it takes a couple hours, but after an hour or two of cooking without a whole lot of resources, you cook a 5, 6, 7 course meal.
Yep.
I've seen it. Go ahead.
That's one of the things we taught at Scout Camp, and especially at the NYLT, the National Youth Leadership Training for Scouts, was how to cook Dutch ovens. I mean, and that my troop, that's every chance they got, Mr. Patton, can you bring out the Dutch ovens?
Yeah, because the food is freaking phenomenal when it's cooked on cast iron.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then besides Dutch ovens, along the same vein, you have your cast iron skillets, your cast iron pots, your cast iron griddles, and and that's cast iron is great. And with the griddles, so now I actually found a good stamped steel griddle that's almost 1/4 inch steel. And so that for a griddle, that thing was that thing's 32 inches long and 18 inches wide. And that's a big griddle, but you can cook everything on it.
Well, one of the things going on a side tangent from there, or something that I like to do is I've got a full size wood burning stove. It was like an insert at one point, but I cut the insert off so that I can actually cook on the top of it. But I'll get the temperature up pretty high, build a pretty big fire in there, get the box up warm, and then I'll push all the coals off to the side, and I'll put my pizza stone inside my wood burning stove, and I cook on the stone. So cooking on stone is also very, very excellent way to cook.
Yeah, we got a couple stones. My wife uses strictly in her propane barbecue grill, and then the other one we have one for in the house. Then I have one strictly for the Boy Scouts that we would, after we get done doing the Dutch oven stuff, we just lay it on the coals and cook some pastries on that for dessert.
The nice thing in my travels, a lot of third world countries will have
one of the machine shop. That's one of the other machine shop. Oh. Go ahead, Uncle Al. No, you go ahead, Uncle Al. You first.
Okay. In my travels, a lot of third world countries will have propane burners, which is a 2-burner. But the trouble is they also have shortage of propane because they're third world. So they make mud ovens. And once they got the mud ovens, they'll make openings for the Dutch oven. They'll slip inside the mud oven, the propane burners. Once it heats up the mud oven and the cast iron Dutch oven, they could cook it. They shut it off and pull out the propane burners. These are 2 burners. Pull it out. The mud retains the heat, and you're still cooking on the mud oven with no propane. And it's pretty neat. I saw it in a couple of countries. They have shapes on top where you fit the Dutch oven in, and they'll heat it up, and they'll cook for most of the day. Unfortunately, I do not like to eat corn masa.
Masa, yeah.
It's there's a word.
I don't mind it.
No, it's no taste, flat, and it's mush. Think of corn mush that's sticky as hell.
I'm from the South. I like that stuff.
That's right, baby.
It's not grits. It's not grits. I had grits. This is a lot worse because they soak it in lime before they grind it.
I don't like grits. I
take
take grits over masa.
I love my grits, man. I eat grits like 4 days a week, 5 days a week.
Same here, but
every morning.
In South Africa, they have it packaged in their military rations, and everybody else is going. It's worse than the instant mashed potatoes here in America.
Hey, instant mashed potatoes are good.
True, but that's in American rations. In South Africa, you have that corn. Watch Blind Fox ration reviews. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I think that process is called nixtamalization.
Yep.
To get that corn.
yeah.
I got a question for the side chat before we get too much farther. For the side chat, ask the side chat what they would like for us to talk about next week. I'm going to let them decide.
Okay.
One of the other random tools that I had on my list, and it goes along with like the machine shop and the wood shop type of thing, but is an oxyacetylene torch, because you can do a whole lot with an oxyacetylene setup.
Yeah, that'd be sweet to have. Wonder how hard that would be to come upon though when you need it. After you've extinguished what you have in the shop, then have to go find more. Wonder how hard it would be to find it.
Well, acetylene is, there's actually ways you can make it out of some deposits, but it's kind of dangerous to fill. I mean, I don't know how you'd actually repressurize one of those tanks without much modern equipment.
That would be my guess. So you'd have to find it already.
You would have to go Go raid the welding shop. Yeah.
Immediately.
You would have to go find a shop somewhere and salvage some out somehow.
Yeah.
There is a way to repressurize oxygen tanks, but it's dangerous as hell. And if you don't have a commercial rig, it's like that French guy that was reading it when I was in France. I was reading the paper. He blew himself up, his neighbors, and a 2.5 block area pressurizing commercial grade oxygen tanks. Not a good idea. This is for welding.
I watched a guy try to refill those small propane tanks out of a big one. That didn't go too well for him, but
Yeah.
Yeah, the only problem with that is the rubber seal in those little green bottles, they wear out. So you only have maybe 2 or 3 use, and then you have to check the whole thing. It's useless after that.
Yeah.
You'll know what I'm talking about, right, Gil?
Oh, yeah. One of the other things here I had for use in the kitchen was the the little trays for growing sprouts and stuff. Because, sometimes during the wintertime, that's the only way you're going to get some fresh greens. Don't have a grocery store to go to anymore. So
sprouted beans and sprouted wheat turned re-dried and made into flour or recooked is often a little bit better for you than eating non-sprouted ones.
Right.
I made several videos on that in the jars and the trays, and I'm figuring out a big way to make sprouted grains, but I don't have the money.
And going off of last week's kind of chat real quick on the side hustle type of thing that we talked about, one of the guys in my Viking group that I go to as regularly as possible, that's one of his side hustles. They do sprouts and they sell it to all the 4-star and 5-star restaurants in town. And he makes quite a bit of money off of just sprouting stuff, and it's not that hard to do.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the sprouts that you eat?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're simple, easy to make.
Yeah.
If you're doing for a large group of people, it's really hard because you got mold problems that you have to be really careful. And it's a good way to get E. coli. With myself, I have to be really careful when I sprout in the trays and the jars because a lot of people goof that up and you see, I don't feel good. Yeah, you got food poisoning. Your sprouts are been contaminated by about 7 different bacteria, including E. coli, which is not very good if you're trying to explain that to the ER person. Like, I eat sprouts, I eat green stuff, I'm healthy. You're vomiting like rainbow colors.
Yeah. The other thing that I have on here, which you can get an attachment for, the KitchenAid guys, your juicer.
A juicer? Yeah, I've got one of those.
Yeah. So, but not just the regular mechanical juicer, and there's also a steam juicer. Which
I hear sledgehammers work well for juicing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're what's his name? That has the big wood mallet. Yeah, Gallagher.
Watermelon guy.
Yeah. But yeah, they have the steam juicers. I've seen several videos on the steam juicers lately. People using them to, like for steaming out the grape juice, all this, without using old mechanical stuff. But you also have your regular your juice. You put everything in there. You put your kale, your artichoke, whatever you want, and it just goes through and it gives you your good healthy juice to drink.
Right. Prepper Potpourri did several on the steam juicer. I can't remember if it was kale or Concord grapes and something else. She used the steam juicer to make juice. And also she did something to make bread. I fell asleep because I watched. Right now, I'm hitting my goal about 300 videos a day. Not easy, kid.
Jesus.
Plus, I read too. So.
Tibor says his juicer will be a rock in a bucket.
Hey, random question.
Yeah, Dan.
how many of you guys, or do any of you guys have solar ovens? And if so, what are your thoughts? I do not have one.
I got
I've
one.
been thinking about it.
Depending on the time of the year, and make sure you have an open area. I've cooked cakes in them. I've done, I've actually put my Dutch oven in there to cook in my Dutch oven. Put the Dutch oven in there beforehand and for hours and let it heat up while I'm doing the stuff. And then I'll put whatever I want into the Dutch oven since the Dutch oven is already hot. And I've cooked in it that way. And I have the Sun Oven brand, and it's really good.
I'm old school. I built my own. Trick is, Dan, if you're going to do a solar oven, get the book, because I went to the last solar fair and I was arguing the guy who was making, I think he sold one to Gil, but about insulation. Insulation is the big thing for solar ovens. And old school prepper did a video. She's in Washington, and it's 45 out there. I told her you could still use it. You could put fire bricks inside the heating box. That'll boost up the heat rate. And also put a quilt. In other words, put a quilt around the oven. It retains the heat so it doesn't escape. Because a lot of them don't have proper insulation. I know I burnt one of mine.
Yeah, I saw a video where they took a hot water heater and turned it into a solar oven with the and they basically they cut it and they painted it all black and they put it inside a box using a lot of insulation with the silver reflective insulation reflecting back to against the old hot water heater, and they would cook several things in there. You had several little openings on it, and then they had the big tempered glass over the top to trap the heat in there. And then above it, they had a shiny piece of sheet metal to also reflect into there as well.
Yeah, but go ahead.
I never heard of one. That's all I was saying.
And that, and then Reed brought up the point with the Fresnel lens or the parabolic lens type of thing. It makes me wonder if there's a way that you can somehow combine a solar oven with a Fresnel lens to like superheat the cast iron or something like that.
Well, you can actually. So funny thing about that, Dan, there's this pretty big reflector one cooktop, this weird looking one. Praxis Prepper did a test on it and stuff like that. It got so hot, it actually cracked and destroyed the bottom on his cast iron. It cracked it out. So he was like, I don't recommend this.
I did the same thing with my solar oven. I got a big Fresnel end, put it in a big wooden frame. I had mirrors adjusted, and a duplicated who's the Greek guy who burned down all those boots? Aristotle?
Not sure.
I can't remember. It was a Greek guy. Aristotle burned all these boats with giant mirrors. I burnt my solar oven and half my backyard with it. So that's why half my backyard has got a concrete pad, because my family got tired of me burning things down.
Yeah, a friend of mine across the street here, Curtis, he's been going to the dump, and the old rear projection TVs and stuff.
Yeah, the whole screen is a Fresnel lens. So
yeah, exactly. And he's been salvaging those Fresnel. He has about 10 of them, and he's planning on making a hot water heater out of that. So basically, he'll have it all set up, and he'll have it so it rolls with the sun as the sun goes over, and it'll heat it up, and he'll have quite a bit of hot water.
Tell him to have a lot of fire. Go ahead.
I would say I heard that's how all those lasers got started in California.
Is Steve in the side chat here?
Yeah, I was going to wonder if Steve's going to pop out and go, Anthony, bad.
Oh, lasers.
Okay, guys, I got an item here, domestic item that I think nobody's thought of. A boot dryer.
A boot dryer?
Yeah, for your boots and stuff. Because if your house isn't heating up, you're gonna need, and you're going out in the wintertime, you're gonna need to dry those boots out to make that leather last longer. And so there's I've heard about it. I haven't been able to find it. My sister told me that back years ago when she lived up in Salt Lake.
They used to have them.
No, that's propane powered.
Real cowboys don't take off their boots.
Yeah, real cowboys don't. They die with their boots on.
Yeah, you got wet boots, you got wet feet. You don't take them things off. Dang it.
Gil, it's the ones with the two tubes that you stick it over the boot, right?
Yeah, you put that. It has the two tubes up. You put the boot on over the top of it, and it has the air circulate through it to dry your shoes out. And
the ones I saw, they just put them on those tubes, like you said, but then they set the tube thing up on a rock beside the fire pit, and that hot rock dried them out.
Well, you could make one like that, but that's one of the things. I've been trying to find the ones that are propane powered, for the heat.
Yeah, check next state over. North Dakota should have it.
Yeah.
I forgot
another little random tool that one of the guys in my scout troop made that me and my dad have made that was really handy is he got a just like a wash basin. This is like an easy way or an easier way to heat water with primitive fire. He got like a wash like a wash tub that you would use a washboard into to scrub your clothes, but then he has a copper coil, and you throw the copper coil in the fire, and you've got an intake and an outtake hose that go into the into the wash basin there, and the fire very easily warms up the water in the wash basin, so you can have warm water to do all of your dishes and this, that, or whatever. So
yeah,
look like Dave put a link in there for you, Gil.
All right, cool.
Bass Pro it says. Dave in Southern Ohio Prepping. I did check my tool guy, and it says Garrett Wade for those hand drills. You get the chest model. I have one in the garage. It's a big metal drill that's a crank. And it has a chest plate. You put it on your chest, and you crank away. And they do have the smaller hand drills for wood and the old woodworking type. So check.
Yeah, I've got all those little hand drills and stuff.
Says, Gil, Kaylin says put one of the old steel hot water bottles inside your boot. That'll dry them out.
Okay. But that's the thing is we need to think about this stuff because we could very easily on leather boots. I've had leather boots before start to get mold on them or mildew on them, and so and we can't have much good leather boots anymore. You want to make yours last as long as you can.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, the next item I got on my list, number 23, is what my wife is bringing up Saturday.
No, she's bringing you a straight razor.
Straight razor. Because, hey, your disposable razors, after either that or we're all going to have big old bushy beards and the wives are going to be really mad at us.
I'm going to be a big bushy beard kind of guy.
What are you talking about, man? Real men don't shave,
His wife bringing him a razor down.
My grandfather, I use, whenever I do shave, which is very rarely, I actually do use a straight edge. I have my great grandfather's straight edge from like 1906 or something like that. And everyone in our family has been taught how to shave with that thing. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I picked it up recently, learning how to do it that way. It's the only thing I found that I can make certain I have a really sharp blade with every time, and it keeps all the ingrown hairs from happening.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where you're going to have like a proper strop to be able to keep that razor sharp. Yeah. And I have found the best strop is a sealskin. And you can find old sealskin strops at antique stores.
Oh yeah.
From old barbershops and stuff. So
yeah, my son was going through some of the stuff I had boxed up from my dad, and he found my dad's straight razor about 2 years ago. And as soon as he saw that thing, he looked at it, he goes, oh man, it had got moisture in it, so it had gotten rusted and pitted. So what does he do? He goes out and finds the best straight razor for himself. and he went out and bought one. He bought the whole strap thing. He got the whole setup. Spent about $500. But that razor he got and stuff will last to his grandson if he takes care of it.
Ryan
Right.
the Gamer's got your way out, Gil. Read what Ryan the Gamer says. He's got your way out. It's
No
no
shave.
November.
Yeah, don't shave, man. That's the trick to it. Just don't shave. Grow that hair out.
Yeah.
Keeps you warm in the winter and cool in the summer. So
Yeah, but the thing is, though, she's coming up from California to visit for next week during Thanksgiving. If Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, and so
Old
You've been
school
married for a while. You know the rules.
yeah, 31 years.
Old school Pepper says, "Don't give Uncle Alan the straight razor." Well, my grandnephews for my birthday gave me an electric razor because he seen my old school, whatchamacallit, single edge razor that I always use, and
Safety razor.
I was using the straight razor, but my hands are kind of shaky. That's why I'm not a knife user anymore. And I used to have my knives razor sharp, so I use them. And they're all nervous because, Uncle Alan, remember that one video where you gashed your face?
yeah, practice on a balloon and shaving cream. That's the way to
No,
learn.
Uncle Alan's hands are shaky. So when I go like this, I accidentally take some extra material off. So I had to stop
Happened
using
here.
this. What?
That's why they always gave away some of that clotting agent every time you buy
Yeah,
a
little styptic ped with a straight edge.
yeah spot thing. Yeah.
That's why my grandnephews gave me an electric razor. You don't want to kill yourself out shaving. And don't forget to get the shaving brush for the soap.
Yep.
Get a horsehair shaving brush. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a boar's hair shaving brush from Germany. That cost me an arm and a leg. Good boar's hair.
Yep. The something else here I was looking at here for speaking of if Mama ain't happy in a end of the world situation. Women still ain't going to want to have wrinkly clothes. They're going to want an iron. And there is a butane clothes iron. Coleman makes one. There were other brands back in the 60s.
Remember the old ones where they put on the stove?
I got that on here too. That's number 25. The old-fashioned one you put on the stove, just let it heat up for a while and do that. So, but where are you going to find one of those? They're hard to find.
Wade Garrett.
I have some from my old grandmother's house.
I mean, Garrett Wade, sorry.
They used to a thing shaped like an iron, and you just put it on the stove and it heated up.
Yeah.
That's where antique stores come into play. You can get all sorts of cool old stuff at
On
antique
the old wood
shops.
stove that you used to cook on and heat your house, and you just set it up there, and when it got warm, you ironed your clothes.
Yeah.
I'm raiding my local museum.
It's called a sad iron, folks.
Yeah. So now we got to go back. Was it
Good
2
plan,
weeks?
Anthony. I like that one.
2
You can
weeks
also
ago.
get the cannon.
Yeah. So now we got to go back. 2-3 weeks ago was what places were we going to go salvage from? We got to add the historical antique shops and the museums to go salvage from now.
All of the secondhand.
Smithsonian is going to get raided real quick. Yeah.
I remember kids.
I think that's in Anthony's part of the woods, is the Smithsonian, right, Anthony?
About
further
10
north.
hours north.
An hour north, yep.
Don't forget, sad irons was the ones you put on the stove, and it's Garrett Wade that carries them. They're not cheap. They're the old sad iron, the old heavy type with the little plate.
Yep.
Put on your wood stove.
And an
That's why
alternative to your sad iron is your small cast iron skillet. If you have a small skillet, you just set that on there and it's a flat piece of iron, and that'll pretty much do the same thing. So
long as it's a good one and it's got a really smooth bottom. Some of the cheap ones do not have a really smooth bottom. I want to get one of the old ones, like a Griswold. That's as smooth on the inside as it is on the outside.
Griswolds are great, but they're expensive.
I have a smooth bottom.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I have what's in my safe. I don't have guns in there. I have a Griswold cast iron skillet, the big one with an iron lid. That ain't coming out of that vault until I'm dead. I got it for $25. I had it appraised a couple of weeks ago when I was Criscoing it so it stays mint condition, and they said it's close to $1,000 because I
yeah. Yeah, the Griswolds are expensive.
Yep.
That's why it stays in the vault.
You just get your Lodge cast iron and get a sanding belt and sand it down.
Yeah. Now, something else we should, I think most of us have, is the backup propane heaters.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where you keep a propane bottle for backup in the wintertime. And along with that is the little propane stoves, the counter stoves. Not the camping stoves. They have the other ones that has that little propane bottle that goes inside of it, and set them up so you can actually cook decently on. I got a couple of those that we've picked up over the years, and those things work really good.
Tibor said,
Don't forget.
Tibor said he had one of those stand-up ringers that you wring your clothes out with.
Yep.
Yeah,
Your
don't
old
forget
Coleman
your cider press either.
Your old Coleman stoves will be good for you as well, because you can, like in an old 1960s Coleman stove, you can burn damn near any liquid propellant out of that and
I got
make
4 of
those
them.
work.
Everybody gotta go see. I'm pointing right. Gil's video on what he says on that list. It's important because a lot of people forget, like grinders, Dutch ovens, straight readers, all that. People forget, so go check out Gil's video on that. I almost forgot something. Never get old and have brain damage. A lot of people, you see, I live near historical sites and weird oddities. 35 miles away is a old place where they used to store ice. Up until 1934.
Ice house.
Ice box.
Ice box.
The wagon. Yeah. Would come by and give you ice for your ice box, and it'll keep your foods refrigerated, or not refrigerated, cool.
Cool, yep.
Yeah, until the next block of ice comes by. I looked in one of those places. It used to be an old mine. They insulated with hay and I think peat dirt and something else. I walked through it and I'm like, good Lord, how long is it? And he told me 1/4 of a mile.
Yeah, those old ice warehouses, they used to put the big chunks of ice in bales of hay and stuff, just cover them up, and the hay and stuff would keep the coolness in on them. And you'd have to go in there and you'd get these ice tongs, and you'd have to grab them with the ice tongs and throw them up into the truck.
Yep. Now, the next 4 items I got on my list here are basically for Reed.
He's picking on you, Reed.
No, this is cool. This is cool stuff I found. I knew about some of it. A 12-volt hair dryer for the wife.
I've seen those.
A 12-volt vacuum. I'm not talking about the little ones for the car. It's an upright vacuum that's 12 volts. I found that one.
Broke up on me, Gil. Can you repeat?
A 12-volt upright vacuum. I found it. It's not a small one, but it's not a real big one, but it's still an upright, like a vacuum broom.
So you're vacuuming and somebody behind you with the battery.
Yeah. The other 12-volt thing I found was a 12-volt microwave.
What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, truckers have them.
Truckers have them. 12-volt microwaves.
Yeah, my best friend.
See,
you're
going to have to hardwire that. I mean, you're talking big cables for those.
Yeah.
My buddy's supervisor, and he puts a microwave in his pickup. so he can drive up around this site, so this construction site he's in charge of. And wherever he stops for lunch, he can jump out, use the microwave to heat up his lunch.
And the last item here is the 12 volt boot dryer.
Well, actually, in my truck, I have a 12-volt tea kettle I keep with me all the time because I make coffee with it. I boil water in it to heat ramen noodles or freeze-dried food or coffee or tea. I mean, I keep that with me all the time. I also keep a mess kit and everything else.
Yeah, man. Just go to your local Love's or Pilot truck stop, and you can find all sorts of really cool 12-volt items and accessories.
Yeah, I like a lot. I've got a little 12-volt micro solar system I've been putting together. It's going to run all my lights and all that stuff. But I'm also looking at a lot of 12-volt accessories for plugging in and stuff like that. Because I was going to run like the 12-volt power adapters that look, power plugs that look like cigarette lighter adapters in the older days.
Yep.
But I'm going to put some of those in rooms and all that so I can plug in like, a lot of chargers for cell phones, the ham radios and everything else and stuff. The reason why I'm doing it is for the 12-volt thing, I don't have to have any electronics involved.
Yep. So I thought you would enjoy that, Reed.
Yeah, that is funny.
Fringe Files. He's asking what ice tongs are.
Tibor answered it for him.
Yeah. It's
There's
just
actually
a handle on it. A handle on it. You can
it's a sheet.
put it on there and then
It's her.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think Anthony's over there. You were talking about small green raising. I asked my great grandaunt, 102 years old, and she said if you're going to do that, you need a thresher, a manual thresher on a crank, or you'll be using nunchucks for beating the hell out of the grain sheets for 2 days. That's what nunchucks were for, not to beat people over the head, to beat grain like Milo, oats.
Yep.
And an 82-year-old woman, she has big forearms. So I'm not going to argue with her. Because in the old days, when you make, in Japan, Milo flour or wheat flour or oat flour, you cut it with a scythe, you gather it up, bundle it, you put it through the thresher, which is a drum with slats, and it's manual power. You have a treader, and it rotates and it knocks off all the grain. If you don't have one of those, then you use the nunchucks and you beat the hell out of them, and you get big forearms by beating the hell. And then afterwards, you make enough for 2 loaves.
The other thing
just reminded me. Someone should remember to print out the patent information for how to make a cotton gin, because getting those seeds out by hand is a total pain. And then
that's why you need to go to the museum.
All right, we're making a road trip to the Smithsonian and get that cotton gin.
Get the plans.
Get the blueprint.
I'm trying to remember. Gil, you were saying something?
Well, back in the early United States, they didn't have the nunchucks. They weren't that smart, I guess. They take, just bundle up the wheat and stuff, and they'd have like the washboard, and they'd beat it on the washboard to get it all the wheat and stuff to break loose.
Yeah, but how many people have a washboard?
Everybody had washboards.
Everybody had washboards back in the old days.
Yeah, back in the old days. In the modern times, how many has a steel washboard to beat your clothes or grain?
Well, a makeshift washboard is corrugated steel.
Yep.
And you just turn it sideways so the corrugations are running sideways. Make a little wooden frame for it. There you go.
See, he knows what he's thinking. All right, you guys, we're gonna have to stop it there. We're an hour and a half in.
All right.
Good.
Another good discussion.
30-item list.
35 items.
Pages.
Yeah, 35 items on there.
That's all?
That's all.
I'm ashamed to go. I was expecting at least 72 items on that list. So
Well, this is just the stuff in the house, domestic stuff,
Yep.
not inside the shop. I went for just what was in the house.
Well, I thought outside the box, but everything
Yeah.
that was in the house could be made out in the shop and brought into the house.
Yep.
Yep. All right, you
I don't
guys.
want-
Anybody in the side chat have any questions or comments?
They're all saying we're crazy.
I'm sure. Yeah. If there are no
Well-
questions or comments, we're going to head out and we're going to talk about what we're going to dazzle you guys with next week.
It's been a pleasure, folks.
Yep.
See ya.
See you guys all later.
Later.
See you guys next week. Be there, be square.
Drink your milk. Don't run with scissors.
Don't forget to brush your teeth before you go to bed.
Get big forearms by beating nunchucks up against stuff. So.
Or by